Hello, and welcome to Google Slides. Now, guys, Sarah has been pumped up over this class. She's like, Slides is my favorite. So I'm going to just very quickly go through this so she can get started. I know she wants and needs every single minute of time. So I am Desiree Alexander. I am your host. I'm the founder CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting. Hello. And these are all of the ways that you can get to me. If you register, you will get an email from me by Monday of next week. If you're joining us live, it will, if you register, you're going to get an email by Monday with the link to the video. If you are attending live today, you're going to get an email with the certificate if you signed in, and you'll get that by Monday. Now, I've been getting a lot of comments on YouTube because people are watching these videos. The resource is in the description. The resource is in the description for my people watching this on YouTube. If you just click show more in the description, the resource should be right there waiting on you. Some things that we have coming up this week on Thursday. I really will stop working by Thursday, but on Thursday, we have Google Forms. If you've ever been interested, that's going to be a really good class. And then we have, of course, just moseying on next week, we have some more of these. Then we have diversity, equity, and inclusion in the library community on July 25th. And on August 1st, back by popular demand, classroom management. Desiree, you're going so fast. How can I get these? They're all on the same link. So as long as you go to edalex.net/events, you can see much more information about these and you can sign up. Then we have Misinformation in the Information Age on August 8th and Templates for Teacher. Hey, Sarah, you look familiar with Beth. They're coming on back for Templates for Teachers on September 12th. There is a summer camp for pre-K through third grade students. For parents, it's $20. For teachers, it's free. So, because you get a 60-day free trial, and it's by Kids Academy. So you can go on my website and find out more information. It actually starts tomorrow. So you want to go ahead and look at that. Then we have the Rethink Learning Summit, all about rethinking education. Now, this is a paid event, but my goodness, there's some good presenters with this event. So you want to go and look at this. You have recorded sessions. You have live sessions. You also have BER. I have 2 sessions with BER. One is about distance learning. The other one is about distance learning in the ELA specific classroom. So some really nice sessions coming up. Ed Change Global 24-hour international conference, July 10th and 11th, completely for free, guys. Go register. We give away so many prizes, and we just have some fun for 24 hours. It's insane. And then we have the the United EdTech Conference, which is $15, and every penny that we raise is going to an educational organization, a nonprofit. So definitely come and check this out. And then we have the Indiana Connected Educators Conference. I'm going to be speaking on one of those days. All that information is on the website, and that is also completely for free. Free. Okay, so we will do an evaluation at the end. So you don't have to worry about this right now. But if you know you're going to leave early, this is a 2-hour session, then you can kind of just throw in the chat like, hey, Desiree, can you give me the evaluation? I'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll hook you up. All right. So I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I know I went through that very quickly. That was on purpose. And I will let Sarah share her screen. And while she's doing that, I want to look in the chat and see if we have, let's see, we have some cannot sign in. If you can't sign in, guys, I can help you at the end. I do have a meeting though. But I can help you for as long as I can at the end. Literally, all you have to do is click on the link in the chat. I'm going to post it again. But, you know, we're using technology. Some stuff acts up. So I'm never one to be like, all you have to do. No, technology acts up. It happens. So I posted it again, 1 through 6. Number 1 is to sign in. And Sarah, take it away.
All right, Desiree, thank you. Thank you very much. And I did give Desiree a heads up. She kind of alluded to this. Like, I love slides. Love it. It's a very versatile tool. We're going to talk about it. So knowing my personal love of Google Slides, I created this slide deck slightly differently than maybe I typically would. I embedded a lot of videos. So I'm very conscious that we could be all over the board. Like, yes, everybody knows this is an intro. And Desiree and I were kind of talking, there are so many of these pieces and slides that I could sit here and I could talk for hours about, like playing around with, showing you could do this, but you could also do that, and let's try this out. So a lot of this is meant to be a little bit more click and play around if you want to. So if I'm talking about one topic and you go, oh, I totally understand that one, and then you want to venture off into something else, feel free to. And sometimes that will spur some good questions. And Desiree's going to keep a real good eye on the chat for me. She'll pop in when she thinks that it's a good time to ask questions. So that will kind of help guide our session as well. But then towards the end, if we don't end up getting to talk about, you know, maybe 2 or 3 of these items that I have tucked in here on the resources, you can always come back to it. This is not a slide deck that you necessarily need to be making a copy of. If you joined us when I did sheets, I highly encouraged you to make a copy of it so that you could be playing at the same time. This presentation is really good to have in your back pocket to come back to refer to check out, and then maybe have a brand new slideshow open, and I'll show you how to do that in a second, and be able to be playing around on that. Or have this open while you are able to, the next time that you go to sit down and you want to modify this or try this out on a Google slide, you have this on a second tab so that you can go back and forth. So a little bit about me to begin with. I'm Sarah Kiefer. I am a technology integration specialist for the Ross Local School District. I have been doing tech integration for about 4 years. I was a classroom teacher prior to that. Our district went one-to-one. I really took Google to heart when I did that, became a Google certified educator, ended up going and also being a Google certified trainer. I am now also a Google certified innovator, which is how I met up with Desiree. She's actually my innovator coach. We met in October of last year at the New York City Google Innovator Academy, and she's been supporting me ever since. And we thought, after doing a couple of other things together, we thought, hey, this would be a really cool thing to do over the summer. There's a lot of teachers that are now being forced to use more digital technology than ever before. And hands down, Google Slides is so versatile. I love it. It's fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. This is the resource link that Desiree shared out already. Should allow you to jump in here. This has got contact information and everything for both myself and Desiree. And this might be a somewhat overlooked piece to Google Slides as well, especially when you use this in a classroom. I do absolutely love down here in the presenter's notes, the speaker notes. If you look down here, you've got like this little bar, this little space at the bottom, and you may not see it too well, but there are 3 little dots. And most of the time people just concentrate on the actual slide itself. But if you look down here, you've got 3 tiny little dots, and I'm going to just pull, like, you can actually make that bigger, which I know it plays with the size of your slide, but this is a great place down here in this space to tuck directions, to tuck links. Notice these are all hyperlinks. You can link out to our websites. You can link out to our Twitter accounts. You can link here to an email. This is a great space for when you're using this in a classroom for your students. You could tuck resources down there. You could tuck videos down there for them to go to, especially when you're working with younger students. If you don't want them just flying out there aimlessly on a Google search, you could do some of the research for them and give them a couple of links and tuck them down here at the bottom. It saves you a lot of time, but it also helps keep your students focused right here and in this slide. And I am a very big hand talker, so I apologize if my right arm is going kind of crazy and my left is kind of staying here. I'm allowed to be out of my sling, but I still don't have great movement. So if I look a little lopsided, I apologize, but I'm on the road to recovery. I did want to share out that, or really focus in on the presenter notes. Likewise, if you scroll, like I'm clicking and I'm pulling backwards, you can also make that small. So you can kind of minimize the space in there as well. So here's the title slide. And then when you go to slide 2, Google Slides, basically traditionally, they're a presentation tool. They're Google's comparable to PowerPoint. You know, and a lot of times you think of that as in meetings, and you've got, you know, good information behind you and all that kind of stuff. You're sharing stuff out. But don't ever just cap a Google tool at what it is at like face value. It is so much more than that. And here I just kind of gave you some ideas of various ways that you could use Google Slides, just real quick hits over here. Now, if you notice this yearbooks, it says, yep, it's possible. There's a lady out there, Jennifer Scott. She actually does her whole school's yearbook using Google Slides. And once you start jumping in and you really kind of understand the ins and outs of slides, you're like, oh, that makes total sense. Way cheaper. She has a whole website where she even shares out templates. If you click here, I've hyperlinked it for you. So you could click here and it will take you to a slide. It will take you to her website. Things like group projects, unit projects. You could use this simply to have kids view videos. This was something that the music teacher that I work with at one of my buildings, he doesn't like all of the suggested videos that come, or all of the commenting that comes and all that, working with smaller kids. So we talked about and we learned how he could just embed some of these videos and it shows the video on a Google slide. It made him feel a lot more comfortable using technology in his classroom. Newsletters, love it for newsletters, and I'll show you why, because it's completely customizable. Interactive activities, a photo album. This would be a great place to be putting in photos. A lot of teachers share out, you know, if you think back a handful of years, it would have been like on a CD or a DVD or a flash drive, or, you know, you're trying to, you know, email out these massive files. You could create a slide deck. Students could be collecting photos throughout the year. They could be putting in some information, some reflections on that kind of stuff. A lab report, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So here's where we're really gonna jump in, and we're going to actually talk about Google Slides. So at its face value, it's a presentation tool. Here are some various ideas of other ways that you could use Google Slides. But then you say, well, Sarah, how do you make all of that happen? So slide 3 is a table of contents. So what I've done is, for each of these icons, it links to a slide. So you've got a table of a 4x4. So we got 16, and actually it's more than 16 slides tucked in the slide deck. So when you come over here, you can click on this. It's going to take you to that particular slide. So when we go through, and like if you already know how to make a Google slide, maybe your mind wanders and you want to go over to somewhere else. That's perfectly okay. Throw your questions in the chat. Desiree will pop them into me when it works out. But then too, long after we're done, you know, in 2 days and 5 days, and you come back to this, know that you can kind of navigate around however you need to or you want to through this table of contents, which is a fantastic example of how you can do this with your students. A lot of teachers created a slide deck for the week. Slides Mania, phenomenal website. I have her linked in one of our resources. She actually shared out templates that you could grab and you could take and you could use for your own. Imagine this saying Monday. Your students come, they click on Monday. If you're in a remote learning situation again, you've got all the information there. What if you're in the classroom? What if you are face-to-face? Works out to be great independent learning. Think about centers. Think about various problems. Like this could be problem 1, this could be problem 2. You know, you could say all kids that are alphabetical A to F, you go to problem 1, and you know, the next group you're going to go to this problem. Very quick, easy access for them to go and to be able to jump and navigate around. So let's go to the first one. Sarah, how do you even make a slide? Easy peasy. There's really two ways that I highly recommend. One is that you could open up a new tab and you could type in slide.new and voila. There you go, brand new Google slide. Fresh, clean to start off with. Done. The other way that I highly recommend is you go into your Google Drive, you click on the new button, and you create a new Google slide. So when you do that, new tab, let's go to Drive, and I'll show you the benefit. This is really the way that I prefer to do it. You go to new, and then when it opens up, it's thinking there's slides. Notice the little caret. We talked about this briefly with slides and docs. It's the same with sheets and docs. It's the same. They have a template gallery. You could go there. You could be inspired. You could start out with something that the template gallery has already shared out. I prefer the Drive method simply because I would open up the folder that I want it to end up living in, and then I always know where it's going to be. If you leave it just tucked here on my drive, which is what happens when you do the slide.new, it just sits here and you end up with this list. And a lot of times what I have found is that teachers are so incredibly pressed for time and we're trying to maximize everything. If you create it where you want it to live, it's already there. If you create it and then you have to make that step like, oh, now I have to organize it, or oh, where did I put that? Even if it's on my drive, you still have to scroll through everything else that you've left sitting on my drive. And Desiree, I think on Monday, we're going to talk about Google Drive. So if your drive is a mess, you might want to make sure you come back on Monday and we talk about different ways, like understanding Google Drive, but then also some ways that you can better organize it. So I've already got a new presentation open here, which I'm going to leave open so we can come back and maybe do some playing around with it. So that's how you make a Google slide. And with sheets and docs and slides, the thing that you need to notice is that the toolbars. I talked a lot about them in sheets and I talked about them again in docs. These toolbars, which you basically, I categorize them in two. You have a very text heavy one and then you have a very image heavy one. These are very similar across sheets and docs and slides. So if you remember the conversation with sheets and then you remember us talking about it in docs, or if you don't, here's some information. And notice I say go to slide 6, which is the very next slide, where it kind of breaks down. This is the unique piece in Google Slides. It depends on what you have clicked on, and your toolbar, your second toolbar, ends up changing. So if nothing is selected, that's what your toolbar looks like. When you select a shape or a text box, I'm going to select the shape over here. Notice my toolbar changes because I've selected something, so it's giving me options of what I can do there. If I select an image, which is what I've inserted this toolbar as, notice my options changed again. And then if I insert, or if I click on word art, which I don't know that I have any word art open, I don't. Your toolbar is going to change again because based on the item that you have selected, different toolbars show up. Now, I'm not going to dive into deeply because it really does depend on what we have selected, and we'll talk about the toolbars as we are clicking and moving around and adjusting things on Google Slides. Moving on, vocabulary is another big piece to any of the Google applications, and a lot of it is the same across the board, but again, there are unique pieces in each one of the applications. So on Google Slides up here in the toolbar, you're only going to see this slide tool in Google Slides. So it's going to give you things that you can do specifically with slides here in Google Slides. Another item that is fairly unique to slides is the arrange. The arrange tool. And right now I have nothing selected, so it's not arranging anything. And I'm just going to plant this idea. Literally everything that you put on your slide, you have to think of it as being a layer. And if you can understand that everything in slides is built as a layer, you'll be in good shape. And then another thing, it's not unique to slides, is the add-on tool up here in your toolbar, but there are add-ons that are unique to slides that we're going to cover. And notice down here, I even gave you, let's go to slide 10, if you want to learn more about which add-ons that I personally use and kind of recommend for Google Slides. Desiree, is this a good time? Are there any questions?
No questions just yet.
Okay. So let's go ahead and jump in. Formatting. There is a lot that you can do with a Google Slide. And here are some of the things, and when I say formatting, things that you can adjust, things that you can make bigger, smaller, color, outlines, shadows, all that kind of stuff. So here are just some ideas. And I've used shapes because this is a big one that gets overlooked. These are all shapes that I've inserted from my toolbar menu up here. So when I hover over this, I've got this little circle on top of a square, and then it gives me these different categories of shapes. All you do is you click on one, and when I do this with students, I always try to do something fun. Like, I don't try to do something super heavy hitting when I'm introducing this, because they get lost and they're like, ooh, what does this shape look like? And what does that shape look like? And then they sit and they stare at me, and I say, click on it. It's the only way you're really gonna know, is if you click on it and you kind of play with it. And this is also great when you're talking about like our littlest students, first graders, kindergartners, and you want to introduce them or you want to do something in Google Slides. Here are some great places. You come in and you click the triangle, and I literally just am tapping once on my trackpad, and you've inserted a triangle. It's that easy. You can change the color of it. Like I have up here, I don't have up here color, but you totally can. You can make them larger or smaller. You can talk about, with older students, you can talk about proportions. If you pull from one of the squares in the center, notice how it changes the triangle that way. Have these conversations with your students. Have them playing around with it, because the more they play around with it, the more you're going to learn, and you're going to see what they can do with it and the questions that they have. And really, like I have up here, the sky is the limit. Just when I think, oh, I probably couldn't do that, I read somewhere or somebody put something out on Twitter and I go, oh, well, yes, you can. And it's amazing what, if you allow students to say, hey, take any of these shapes and build something, it probably will be very incredible, the things that your students will be able to give back to you and will be able to demonstrate for you. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna jump in. And like you can see here on my brand spanking new Google slide, you can see that this is what your brand new Google slide is going to look like. It's untitled. It's got a blank slide over here to the left in the column. You've got your main part of your screen here, your toolbars, and then you have this odd column showing up. And that's where over here on the left we get into themes. So Google Slides, and we talked about this briefly with Sheets. It's pretty new in Google Sheets. And if you think about a theme across any, like in a book or in a theme in a nursery, you're going to like understand it a lot better. So these themes are going to allow you to pre-configure some of your slides. So for example, right now I'm in the simple light theme, and you notice that because it's got the gold lining around it. If I don't care for that, or I say, oh, that's kind of boring, that's kind of simple, scroll down, scroll through here. They've got some pre-collected themes in here, and you go, oh, I kind of like this paradigm. All you have to do is click on it, and then notice how it changed my slide. I didn't do anything, I didn't add anything, I didn't subtract anything. I just changed the theme for this. And really how you know if this is the theme that you really like is over here on the top left, there is a plus sign in it, and when you hover over it says new slide. So if you wanted to add additional slides over here, you could just click on that. But that little shark tooth, do you remember what I said when I talked about the shark tooth last week? anytime you see a shark tooth that tells you, click on it, there are more things. So when you click on the little shark tooth next to the new slide button, you get this little pop-out menu, and you can see these are all of the predetermined included slides with this particular theme. So when you're ready and you want to add in a new slide, maybe you want to add in this particular one. All you have to do is click on it, and it pre-configures your slide, and then you just plug in some text. And you go, well, I'm not a big fan of that. So then you keep scrolling, and you might find another theme that you really like, and you're like, ooh, I really like purple. Purple's great. So click on Plum is the name of that theme. And notice it didn't just change the first slide, it's also changing my second slide, because on that shark tooth, again, it's giving you a different selection of predetermined slides for this particular theme. And we could sit here all day, couldn't we? I know if you're a teacher, like a lot of the teachers that I am aware of and that I talk to, like this gets their juices going. They're like, oh, like these things just come, they're just there, and I just click on them. No more boring slideshows that just have like white backgrounds. Or again, I can't stress enough, show this to your students. Have this conversation with your students. They may not think about putting a big block of this plum color here and having two, a title over on the left side and a subtitle here, and this is where they put in the bulk of their information. It helps with that layup. It helps them understand that it's not just bullet points. It's not just text boxes everywhere on your slide. It helps them generate some of these predetermined and yet good looking presentations if you're using it in that manner. And like I said, you just go through and you can check them all out. We could sit here and look at this for a long time. And I will point out, I did add in a couple of resources on the last couple of slides. Slides Mania and Slides Carnival are two websites that I highly recommend you go to. They share out all kinds of slide decks and various themes and all that kind of stuff that you are free to take, and you'll make your own copy of it, and then it's yours and you can modify it however you would like. Slides Mania is phenomenal. I would follow her on Twitter. She just does this stuff because she highly enjoys it, and we're all benefiting from it. So that's themes, and I'm going to use that to lead right into the master.
Before you get there, Sarah, we have two questions.
Sure.
Can each slide be different with a different theme?
Good question. Now, did you notice when I selected a new theme, how it changed the entire presentation? So keep that in mind. When you're selecting themes, it's changing the entire feel of the slideshow. Just like if you wanted to re-theme a nursery, like maybe you had a baby girl first, and then you had a baby boy, and you want to do a new theme, you're going in and you're selecting individual pieces potentially. But what Slides does is it's like the whole thing. But stay tuned, because when I show you this next part about the masters, you might say, okay, like I understand, like it's the whole thing, but there is some ways that you can customize it. So stay tuned on that one.
And the second question is, do you have any experience with virtual classrooms using slides?
Maybe I might be misinterpreting this question, but we did just go through that period of remote learning. And I am in a pre-K to 4, 2 buildings. I work with pre-K to 4 teachers. In our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades, we heavily used Google Classroom already. So it was not huge. Like the logging in and the being at home and doing Google Classroom at home was a big change. I'm not discounting that. But our 1st grade and our kindergarten had not used Google Classroom anywhere to the extent that they could really think that that was a viable option at home. So,
I think she may be talking about actually creating your slide as a virtual classroom, how they have the little, like the floor and the walls and all that.
Okay, and that will come like when I show you how to do some of the inserting of pictures and customizing things like that. But Google Slides is a fantastic, not substitution, but a great way of creating those virtual classrooms. I do think that Slides is probably your best tool to be able to do that. Me personally, no, because I'm a tech integration specialist. Like I don't have a classroom like with students. I'll go into classrooms. So I have not personally created one, but there are a couple of, I know there's like groups out there that they share a lot of those resources around too. We good?
Yes, we are good.
Okay. So inserting themes. So if you have 25 slides in here and you decide to change the theme, keep in mind it's going to change all 25 of those slides. But what I have recently wrapped my head around, and this just goes to show you, I am constantly learning. I never sit here and think that I know everything. I've had students show me different things. I'm like, oh, I had no idea I could do that. Like, thank you, that's awesome. I've had other teachers show me things. I've had administrators. So I'm constantly learning. And the one thing that always kind of not terrified me, but I just never did anything with was the whole master slide. I hear people talk about it and I just really did not, I'm gonna be honest with you, I really didn't understand it. So that was our next slide. It is seriously super awesome. And I'm going to tell you now, you do not need to be intimidated by this because I mean, it's Google, right? Like you can undo stuff, you can fix things, you could start a whole new one and do a lot of copying and pasting. Like you really cannot ruin anything. So in my plum theme here, looking at my different templates over here for my little slides, let's say I don't like that purple, like I want it purple, but I'm not a big fan of this particular purple. So what you're gonna do is on your toolbar menu, you're gonna view the master. Okay, so pay attention to the screen, and actually what I'm going to do first is I'm going to close out my themes toolbar. So this little X up here, I'm just going to close that out. You can always bring that back if you haven't selected anything. There's theme here, or you can go to which one is it? I think it's under slide. There's change theme, and then you can bring that back. So you can always bring it back. I know you click out of things and sometimes you go, where'd it go? So anyway, on viewing the master, this actually takes you into like the background of all of those predetermined, pre-configured slides. And you can see all of those slides that used to show, and notice that it's even grayed out, this little shark tooth. You can't view those because you're actually viewing them right here. So what you can do is if you don't particularly like this font, and teachers I think get very attached to certain fonts, like maybe you don't like Railway, which is what it is up here, just like you would if you were actually on the slide, you can change the font. And maybe you don't particularly care for Source, Sans, whatever it is, and you want it to be rock salt. You change the font when you're in the master and you go ahead and you click on it and you change it right there. There you go. It changes it for this slide as the template. So then the next time I want to go in and add in this particular slide from my little shark tooth menu, it's going to carry these two new fonts. You can change the size of it. You can change the color of the text if you wanted to. Maybe you want to highlight it, you want it in bold or italics, customize it to the hilt if you would like. You want it centered in that text box. Like I said, you go crazy with it, and we could spend hours talking about it. But remember we were talking about that purple, and I'm like, I'm not a huge fan of that particular purple or whatever. So what you're gonna do is you're going to, oops, sorry, my slide was moving on me. I'm going to come up here, maybe go to the master, and yeah. So I've clicked on this slide, And then notice again, my toolbars are changing depending on what I'm clicking on. So I just have clicked on this particular slide. Do you see the little artist palette with colors? These are your theme colors. So when you come over here and you click on that colors, it's going to give you that column over here. And here are all of the colors that are predetermined to be in your slide. So say I don't particularly care for this purple. So I'm going to click on that purple and I can choose red. Red is my favorite. I'm always going to go with red. It thinks for a minute. There you go. Let's close that up. Now it didn't change this. So notice how this one is still purple. I do a lot of things matching up visually. And if what I did change didn't do what I anticipated, I just match it up visually down here. So let's change that to red as well. And boom, you customize that color. You pick whatever it is that you want. And then you can also say, maybe I want that to be, let's just do rainbow. Give it a second. I don't have anything right now using accent 3. So you may not see any changes reflected initially. Let's give this one a green and this one a blue. And then when you're done changing the themes, and here's something that I found very interesting when I discovered and I jumped in and I started playing around with Master. You notice like in a doc or in a sheet, when you create a hyperlink, it automatically changes the text to that hyperlink blue. I always just think of it as hyperlink blue, and then it gives it an underline. In slides, I always found it strange that it changed it to this weird teal color instead of the traditional hyperlink blue. I've never quite understood it, but I finally figured out it's this link color in here. So anytime you create a link inside of Google Slide, if you want it to be that hyperlink blue, which I think traditionally most people associate with a hyperlink, instead of having to select it and change your text color, you could go ahead and change that link to be the blue. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, like how easy was that? That was super, super easy. So if I'm done with my theme colors, I can close out of here.
So Sarah, let me stop you right there because we are loving this, but we want you to show us again, how do we get that toolbar? How do we get those colors?
Okay, so let me get out of where I'm at. So this is the theme that I have selected, right? I went into theme and I picked, let's pick another one just for fun, right? Let's go to Streamline. So I've got my theme, but I'm like, ew, I don't like that green and that orange. I'm like, oh, I wish I could customize it. Wait, you can. So you're going to go to View, go to Master, and then here are your template slides. And I'm going to get rid of this themes column, get it out of my way. And I'm going to click on this first slide. So you notice it's got the blue bar around it. And then I see my color palette, that little icon. I always think of it as an artist palette. And it says colors next to it. And as long as you've selected the entire slide and not a piece, notice how the toolbars are changing. That's a pretty cool thing about slides. So I've got a whole slide selected and I'm going to change my colors. So remember, they come predetermined, and notice these accent colors are different than the accent colors that were in the purple theme that I had chosen. And all you have to do is click on where it says accent 1, accent 2, and then it's going to bring up your color palette down there. And if you know a particular hex color, we talked about the extension, and I have it on this account too. Sorry, I just got to move my video thing out of the way. This color pick eyedropper extension, if you have a very specific color that you want, we'll get into this later. So hold tight, so we'll dive in more deeply there. But if you have a particular color, you could put it in here. Like if you want to match school colors is what I think of a lot of times. Or you're working on a book and you want to match up colors. But you can change, I don't want it to be that gray, I want it to be this gray. And it's going to go ahead and change those theme colors. So anytime you choose to use that, let's give this peachy color, let's change that to obnoxious neon green because you can totally see that. And you can go through any of those and you're good to go. And here's the link. So in this theme, all of the links will turn to that dark blue. I did say that I didn't particularly care for that orange, didn't I? Let's change it to, you guessed it, red, because I love the red. Notice how that little teeny tiny little, a line more than a rectangle, is now red. And maybe that teal color, let's go to that teal color. Maybe I want that to be blue. Red and blue are probably my faves. So it not only changed that little tiny piece to the slide deck, but it also changed that whole big slide, because remember that was one big huge slide of teal. So when you're done, you've customized it, you've changed, you clicked in here and you're like, again, I just don't like Railway. I've got to change that. Maybe I want to do Manda this time. And maybe I want it to always be red, you know? Customize this. And again, this is where when you show this to students, you're giving them a theme to start with, but then they can play with the color, and they're not tempted, hopefully, to add those bright neon headache-inducing colors and big splotches. Say, you know, stick with how it's laid out and just change a couple of the colors, and then they'll be happy, and then you can move on. And again, as they get older and they understand more and they apply more, it'll become a lot nicer. So now notice when I come over to my little shark tooth, here's based on the new colors I've picked. These are the new options that I have in my shark tooth. Now, the other cool thing is because you've changed those theme options, let's say you're down in here and let's add in a little shape, which I love little shapes. My favorite probably is this rounded rectangle. Let's say I want to fill this little rounded rectangle with this same red. I don't have to think too difficultly, because I'm going to select this rectangle. I'm going to click on my little paint bucket, and here are all of my theme colors. So when you add them in or you switch out the theme colors that they have for the ones that you prefer, you're also allowing yourself quick access to them right here. So now those two reds match up. If I wanted to change it to the blue, or if I wanted to change it to that bright neon green. So by creating them in your master, you're really going a long way in helping yourself out long term with this particular slideshow. And one thing I've heard people talk about, I forget who it was that suggested this, maybe I read it from Slides Mania, is that some people will create, like if you are very attached to a particular colors, you're very attached to a particular theme, or you customize something, maybe I get super incredibly attached to my title slide and I really love everything about it. I could recreate this as a master slide, and then what I could do is I could just duplicate this anytime I want to start a new Google Slides. I could go up to File, I could make a copy of the entire presentation or just particular slides, and then I've kind of helped myself out long term. I've created my own master. You know, think about Blackline Masters. I've created my own Blackline Master that has the particular fonts, the particular colors, the particular whatevers I want, and then I just duplicate from that point on so I can have that consistency, if that's something that's important to you.
We have two questions, Sarah.
Okay.
One is, what's the difference between accent 1, 2, and 3? And that may be something that they just have to play with, but I wanted to make sure to ask you. And then, is there a way to lock down shapes and text boxes if you're sharing a slide deck with students so they can't move things around?
Ooh, love that question. Love that question. And that's actually pretty awesome to talk about now. The difference between the accent colors is based on the different slide that you end up choosing to insert. So when I come here, notice how, I think it's on that first one, notice how I changed this master to be the red color. When I went to this slide, this click to add title is still black. If I wanted to adjust that and I go into master, I'd have to figure out the color that I want that to be. And then when you click through these, there's varying changes that you can make. You could just change the text color here. And again, it's got your theme colors down here. I really do believe that there's so much customization that can happen in Google Slides that to truly understand and really wrap your brain. And like I said, I just really am getting super comfortable with the master, playing with it and using it, trying things out, is to understand truly the difference between accent 1, accent 2, accent 3 probably is going to be your best bet. And then the master, leading into the second question you asked, Desiree, if you want something that cannot be changed, can't be moved around or adjusted, you can add it in on your master. So let's take this, it's a blank slide, whatever this one is down here. So normally if I inserted this into my presentation, I would have this text box down here and then nothing on this particular slide. Let's say I wanted to do a Venn diagram. Any language arts teachers in the house? Language arts, a lot of time, like graphic organizers, Venn diagrams are just easy options. I'm going to add in a circle. And if I want to make this circle stay a circle, this is a trick I've learned as well. Hold your shift key down and then pull on the corner, and it will increase the size of the circle proportionally. Hey, math teachers, it's a great thing to have a conversation with students about. So I've made it as wide as I did tall, right? So I've made this giant circle, and I want to do the 2 Venn diagrams, or the 2 circles for your Venn diagram. But first what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my fill color to transparent. I'm going to leave the border of it black. And then I learned this trick from a Dr. Desiree Alexander the other day, that if I hold shift and then slide across, it makes a duplicate. No, I did something wrong there, Desiree. I like the keyboard shortcut Control D to duplicate. And so or copy and paste. So I made a second circle. So now I've got my Venn diagram. Customize it again however you want. Maybe you put in a text box here or whatever. But now when I go back and I want to add in, see my little Venn diagram? Students cannot select these circles. They're in the background, they're gonna stay there, and they can't get rid of them. Well, they can, right? I mean, they could delete the slide. But that's where we talk about, with Google Docs, we talked about version history. Guess what? Slides has the same thing. Here's version history. Use it, put it in your back teacher pocket for a nice, awesome tool. You can go in and see the version history of your doc. You can bring things back if students have accidentally deleted them. Works really good when you're doing group projects. Students might think that they're on their slide, or they might think that they were doing their thing and they accidentally delete each other's. It happens. Don't freak out. Don't let them freak out. Go to the version history, which we did last Thursday. You can go in. It's time-stamped. It's not perfect. Don't expect it to be perfect, but it is pretty darn good. You can always go back in time to what it was at 1:53 Eastern time. So keep that in mind. You would just click restore. I don't want it to. I want to stay on the version that I'm at. So inserting it on your master slide, how awesome would that be? And I had this thought when I was creating this presentation, like, what if somebody had a whole master slide of all of these different graphic organizers? And then all students had to do would be come up here and boom, 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 pick one of them and move with it. But then I thought, well, there's so much that we need to customize. What if you want 3 circles and all that kind of jazz? But yes, that is one way. The other thing that you could do, I'm going to just insert a blank slide, is you could do the exact same thing. Insert that circle. Create your, ooh, that one looked big. Create your circle. I'm going to leave these a different color just so that you can see a difference. And And then my trick is, and it's not a trick, I just go to File, I download this slide, and then on another new slide, if I want to insert it, I'll come up here, and this is another piece to Google Slides, is the background. I'm going to insert that image that I just created on my Google slide. And because I still have it down here in my Chrome browser, I'm just going to bring it up, drag it, and drop it on here, and then it is going to insert it. And it works the same. But keep in mind, if you do it this way, you can't edit anything about this. Like it's frozen, it's there. So if I wanted to end up changing anything about this, like I go, oh, this doesn't have the overlap circle, unless you still have this one that is editable. So it's two ways you could kind of lock things in, but always remember deleting is an option. If they delete that whole slide, technically it's gone, but version history, it'll bring it back.
So we do have a couple of questions. First of all, for the trick that you were trying to use is actually control drag.
I'm going to try it. Okay. Control. Oh, no, hang on. I'm going to get this, Desiree. Control. No. Why is it different on a Mac?
Oh, it definitely may be different on a Mac. Oh, she said try Command on a Mac.
That just moves it. I'll learn. I'll figure it out one day. I'm always learning.
Then we have, is there a way to make a new master copy?
Like,
I don't know if she means like if you just make a copy of the whole slideshow and then change the master.
I mean, you absolutely can. You can make multiple copies. And here's what I think she might be asking is, when you customize, like you take this theme, whatever this theme was called that we had, and we got it like perfect, and this is something that I want to use weekly, or I want to use this for every presentation that I create. What I would suggest that you do is come up here to the title and label this master, make copies, and then leave this. Don't do your work on here. Use this as your own personal template, and then do the file, make a copy of the entire presentation. And then that way, any of the colors you've added in, any of the changes you've made to your master, then every time you make a copy, you're carrying all of that with it. I'm thinking that might be the kind of question that she's asking, but I'm not 100% that that's the right answer for her.
She said, yes, it is. And then the next question is, how do you get the pick inside the circle on your cover slide?
The pick inside the circle. On my slide?
I'm not sure. Oh, she maybe just talked.
The picture, maybe?
I'm guessing so. Yeah, I'm guessing that's what she's talking. Yeah, she said that's what so it's a little off topic.
Oh, no problem. That's another one of our items. If you go to the table of contents, inserting images somewhere, maybe not. Formatting, I think. Anyway, so what I did, number one, you have to have my good friend Leah take your picture, and she did a phenomenal job. So I love this picture, so I use it for everything. But what you do to insert, again, a lot of these things with Google is a lot of intuitive, think about just plain speak. So I want to insert an image, and you've got these options that show up. I have this particular photo of myself saved on my computer for this very reason, so that I can bring it into any slide deck. I always think it's good to associate a face with a name, and I do the same with my that's our school logo, or little ram head. So I would select upload from computer, and then I would select the place that things to keep. I'm pretty simple when it comes to naming. And then there's my picture, and I insert it. So this is the photograph that Leah took for me, and I love it. And what I did then was, notice how this is, it's a photograph, so it's rectangular. And what you can do is you can mask the images. So as long as it's selected, and you know that by the dots around it, I tell the kids, I'm like, well, you brought your scissors, right? And they look at me and their jaws drop. They're like, what? Your digital scissors, okay? We're gonna crop this picture because we don't need all that stuff around my head. And I want it to be, you know, more of a circle. And I said, but don't worry, anything that we do to it, it's not gonna hurt the picture, and we can always bring it back. And then they really are like, what? So it's selected, and then this little odd square that kind of overlaps, got a sharp tooth next to it, hover over it, says mask image. And then what I want to do is I want to mask it with a shape. You could pick any of these. And again, this is one where the first time you do this with students, I do recommend you give them a little bit of time, because they're gonna be like, ooh, what if I did this smiley face? Try it. So you click on it, and you can't see it real well, but there are little circles right here for the actual smiley face. And they're like, well, that's not too bad. I'm like, yeah, but look closely at that. It gives my head some weird shadow lines. So let's pick something else. You come back to the shapes and like, oh, what about the lightning bolt? Like, that's a favorite of fourth graders in particular. Like, that lightning bolt. Try it. Check it out. They're like, well, Miss Kiefer, that's not really what we're going for. Yeah, I didn't think so. Let's try something else. And, you know, give them a couple of things to try out. I land on the circle, and there you go. So I've inserted that image. It's a photograph that I've got. I've masked it. But what if I'm not entirely happy with that? Like, maybe I don't want it that big. I can always pull from the corners. But if I do like a couple of taps on it, or it's selected and then I click directly on the squares, it gives me black lines. And note, like, the black lines are different than the blue ones. And you have to do this. It doesn't always work the first time. It's a very finicky, not finicky, but you just have to be very particular when you click on like this black line. I can pull this down, and I tell the kids, like, oh, look, you're using your scissors. Mrs. Kiefer, I just cut off part of your picture. Yes, you sure did, but I want you to do a double click on it again. And look, you didn't really cut it off. Like, that's the awesome thing about using pictures in here. You can't really damage them. And you can play around and you can adjust, you know, go crazy. Boom, you get it how you want it to be. Oh, I'm gonna add a border. What color? Red, of course, it's my favorite. I wanna add that. Oh, that's not a very thick border. I wanna make it thicker. Yep, let's go to 12. Ooh, might be a bit much, you know, and then you go and you play around with it and you really kind of adjust it to make it perfect. Or here's where maybe you have a theme color that you've inserted and you use that for your theme. So you can do that with photos. You can do that with other images. And actually, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put it over here on this slide. So you see, like, I can go from one slide to a whole different slide, and it was a matter of copying and pasting. And yes, this is a photograph, but you might also want to search for a particular image, photo, idea. I always look up puppies. Those are cute. And you pull up this little guy and you're inserting this. And this is another awesome use of slides, where when you're wanting to bring in pictures, again, you're not sending students out to these brand like new open Google searches. Keep them contained. It kind of helps keep them focused. Let's insert that cute little puppy dog. Well, number one, he's ginormous. We're going to have to shrink him down. To mask him, to give him, maybe I don't want it to be rectangular. Maybe I want it to be a square. I'm going to click on the little sharp tooth, go to my shapes, and I'm going to pick a square. And well, it's reading that already as a square. So let's crop it. So click on that. I've got my black lines. Maybe I don't want all of that background. So this is where I say I could get lost in this, and I could take him and I can rotate him and I can give him border colors, and I love it. I love everything about it. Other questions, Desiree? Are we moving on?
We are good to continue.
Okay. All right, so we have talked about, let's go back up here. We've talked about making slides, we've talked about toolbars, some vocabulary, formatting, theme, master slide, background. Let's talk Explore. We talked about it with Google Docs, and it's in Sheets. It works a little bit different in Sheets. But again, I go back to, let's say you're in a classroom. Let's go to this one. Let's delete both of these guys. And maybe you're doing a research project, or maybe students are doing a group project and they need to bring in some information. Like I just said with the whole puppy dog thing, if you tell them to open up a new tab and go out and do a Google search, I really do hope that you've done some excellent research training with these kids, because you're just sending them out to the wide open web, which is not a horrible thing, but keep in mind, like, there's a lot of stuff out there. It's a lot for anyone to go through, and natural human tendency, I think, is to pick the first couple of links, and that's not always the best. So in Google Slides, it has this pretty fantastic tool down here in the bottom right-hand corner. It's called the Explore button. And when you click on it, you pop out this column, just like where your themes column was. And let's say you want to search. Let's search for, let's do American Revolution. Now, I'm typing this in. It gives me some, Google's AI is giving me some items to pick from. This is great, especially for younger students. I go in regularly to first grade around President's Day, and they each pick a president, and then they want to bring in a picture of the president. Well, some of their names are very difficult for a first grader. So unless they already have a paper right there with the name spelled out on it, this is a great time to help them. If they just start sounding out somebody's name and getting in some letters, even if they're not 100%, it could help them. What my computer's gonna think. It could help them be a little bit more independent doing their researching and their exploring over here. So you can see, it's coming up with some pretty interesting things. So American, if I can get, there's American. They can use the AI to help them. Revolution, look at that. I typed in the R, and there is my option that I wanted to look for. That's great for the littlest learners. It's also great for those of us. Spelling is not my forte. I love that spelling help is kind of built in that way. And then if you look here, they can kind of read these little briefs. And if it's something that they feel is very appropriate for them, they click on it, and then yes, it does take them out, but it takes them to that link. It's not the big, massive Google search, and then they have millions of hits as a return. Here, notice the other thing that it shows. They could just search for images about the American Revolution. So again, it's kind of keeping them contained while not really limiting the things that they're looking for, the things that they need for this particular slide deck. And the other thing that it's going to search as far as my search terms is my own drive. Now, keep in mind, I was a social studies teacher, so it's going to pull back items that Google's artificial intelligence is reading, that it's connected to something that I have in my Google Drive. You can see that I've got some items in here because I did teach social studies for 7 years, but you have those three options right here. Now, when I did this with my own daughter, one of the times that she was doing some research and she was doing this, she said, but Mom, I don't think any of these are really good for me. And I said, well, can you think of something that you can add on to your search terms? And she said, well, yeah, what if I put for kids? I said, well, type it in. Something as simple as American Revolution for kids is going to give you different options as a return. And notice, Like right here, it even says American Revolution facts for kids. So just typing whatever it is that you're searching for kids, helps narrow it down. And for our elementary students, this is crazy powerful, because then you're not necessarily worried that they're going to go off into the history.com and they're going to get real super deep into, the bloody battles and all that. Maybe that's not really what they need to be looking at. So when you add on those search terms, and again, as a teacher, this is huge, regardless of the age group that you teach. I go in and I talk about this all of the time when I go into classrooms. And if we can teach them as first graders, second graders, that their words matter, whatever they're doing from that point on, if they really understand that and they grasp that, it just helps. I know that's just a little sidebar, but that's something that I'm very passionate about, is if we can teach these solid research skills, we kind of have fun doing it, it's going to benefit our kids today and then in years to come. So keep that in mind when you're using that Explore button. And anytime you want to click on that, notice it takes me to a new tab. That's fantastic. If you want an image, you click on the image option, and you can click that little button, or you select it first, and then you get the preview of it. Down here at the bottom, it talks about the usage rights. Great conversation to have with students. And then it pops it right into your slide, and look at that. It even carries over the citation. It carries over the link as to where this picture came from, which is fantastic. Then you can talk to your kids about citing stuff. It's awesome. Now, one thing I did realize as I was going into this, Desiree, I don't know how I missed this. The whole format of the slide, what the slide actually looks like, the size of it. I can't believe that I totally forgot about that. So what I'm going to do.
We will forgive you.
Oh my gosh, this is like crazy powerful. And like I said, don't look at slides and just take it as is. We talked about changing the master. We talked about changing the theme. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I am going to not take my own advice, and I'm going to do slide.new, because I want, and this is like in a classroom, I want to move. I want to groove. I want to get this going. I want to get this up here. Okay, so I've got a new slide. Do you know, like, slides don't have to be rectangular? I can't believe I didn't start with this. Slides do not have to be rectangular. You can change them. And that is where slides is like crazy versatile. So let's say you're doing a newsletter, right? Which was one of the ways that I had suggested. Your newsletter doesn't have to be landscape. Let's change it. Go to File, Page Setup. And if you think about in Google Docs, what would show up now is a menu to give you options for your margins or your page color. Here it shows widescreen. And again, most typically we're doing a presentation on a computer, or we're projecting it on the screen behind us. So yeah, like it makes sense for it to be this rectangle. But if you're doing a newsletter, if you're having kids do presentations, if you're having them create what appears to be a magazine page, you're not going to want it laid out this way. So you have 3 options, and then you have custom. It's my favorite word, custom. So click custom, and then I always think of like a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, right? So I want to change the width. How nice is that? It tells me that that's the width. I'm going to change that to 8.5, and I want to change the height to 11 inches. That's my units of measurement. And again, hey, math teachers, look at this. You could talk about differences, centimeters, points, pixels. Those get into like some computerized words, but change it, keep it at inches. And then when you apply it, like watch the screen behind, apply. And now your slide that was a landscape piece of paper is now a portrait piece of paper, and it looks like a piece of paper. I mean, that's where I started like, wow, this is crazy awesome. Now, another thing that I like to point out when you're working with younger students, a lot of their books, and this is, I went into a 3rd grade classroom and they were talking about making a book. And I said, hey, that's awesome. I'm like, what do you want the book to look like? And they were kind of like, I don't know. And I said, go over to your class library, look at the books that you have. And they're like, but they're all different shapes and sizes, right? You could make your slide whatever size and shape that you wanted. Now, do put a little bit of thought into this. If you have any intention of printing, you want to keep that in mind. If you're 100% sure that you're going to print, make the change early before any work gets done. Otherwise, when you start to change pages, the sizes and the shapes of them, it's going to throw things off that you've already created. So put a little bit of thought into that. But you could make this, one of my favorites is to making them square. So maybe I would do an 8x8. Cute little, photo book, 8x8. Maybe I'm not planning ever on printing this, but like when I make photo books for my own daughters, sometimes we do the small little square ones. It's perfect. It's perfect. It gives you that playground, if you will, to adjust things. And then look at your rulers up here on the top and on the left. So I apologize for not having actually even started with that, but that is one of the things that when I've shown this to some teachers, they're like, I had no idea. You could change the size and the shape? Absolutely. It still needs to be rectangular, but you could go crazy with it. You could change it to all different kinds of dimensions. And Desiree and I did a webinar, it's been about maybe about a month, about building an app. And what I did was I figured out what the dimensions were for a phone, and I made the slide in those dimensions. I did use pixels in that case. So I very heavily use that customizing on the page setup. Any questions about that part, Desiree?
I do want to just promote that webinar because it was amazing on how to create an app. It's on the YouTube channel. So we have two questions. One is, what size do you recommend for classroom headers?
Google Classroom headers. There is, and I have a website, Templates for Teachers. We have a template that you can actually grab. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm going to tell you the way that we figured that out. I Googled it. I typed in, what size should my classroom header be? And it gave me back the pixels, like 1200 by 400. Don't quote me on that. But there are a lot of people, myself included, templatesforteachers.com. You can go there and you can grab the template that we have, and then you can just customize your pictures that you want on it, and it's already laid out that way. So I don't know that off the top of my head. I apologize, but Googling it, anything that you want to know. Desiree, you and I talked about that in the last webinar too. If you have a question about something, Google it. Somebody out there probably has come up with the answer for it. So I would suggest that.
And I love that's a little preview of Templates for Teachers that's coming in September.
Yep.
The other question was, it was asked earlier, but I think this is a really good time to ask it. And it's about sending slides in present mode. So you're talking about like a picture book, and I think this would be a really good time to answer that.
Okay, so that's getting into the sharing and publishing piece more than anything. Obviously, it's a Google product, so your sharing permissions and all that works the same. You've got the gold share button up here. Right now, this one is locked. No one can access this but myself. Compare that to my actual presentation where it is shared so that anyone that can access the link can access what this looks like. Now, if I wanted to share this to my students, I could use my school's LMS like Google Classroom or Schoology or whatever product your school uses. Make sure your share settings are correct. So you have to allow whomever to be able to view it. So anyone with the link, or maybe in your domain, anyone in the Ross domain can view this, but I've got the above link. Anyone can view it. That's why you're able to do it. You could copy that link and you paste it in whatever. That's what Desiree did when she pasted it into the toolbar or into the chat. I had made it a short link to make it a little bit easier, but that's how you could add it. You could also use the pulling in from Drive. Now, a different way of handling this is if you just wanted to share it in the present mode, you're going to want to go to File, and let's go to Publish to the Web. And you've got really two options. You want to publish the link to it, or you want to embed it, say like on your website somewhere, or you're going to embed it, I guess a website, yeah. And then you say, you have some options here. I don't typically play around with this stuff because people like to move through the slide decks on their own. So yes, are you sure you want to? Sure. And then it gives you this new link. It is not the same as this link up here. These are two different links. So I'm going to copy this link, close out this pop-up toolbar, and I am going to open a new tab, paste it in here, and now I am sharing this slide deck in presentation mode, and it becomes the clicking through. I'm going to hover over this. My hand turns, or the cursor turns into a hand that'll take me out somewhere. So there's that. The other potential way is you grab the actual URL after you've made the sharing permissions correct. I'm going to copy this URL, this big, ugly, long, nobody could ever try to type that in somewhere. That would just be crazy. I'm going to paste it in a new tab, but I am not going to click enter. Notice my cursor is up here flashing, so I'm going to delete all the way back to this final slash, this backslash right here. I'm going to delete, come on, little buddy. Let's delete all the way back. And the last thing I'm going to delete is edit. And this is true. This is not really an intro, but I'm going to show it to you because I love it. So I'm going to type template preview. And if you had this link, which I can pop into the chat if this is something that people want, but the benefit to doing it this way is it does show in present mode. You don't see the slides column over here on the left side. But if you click this use template, and this is how they're all on the Templates for Teachers website, you'll see them in this manner. If you click this use template, it automatically makes a copy in your own Google Drive. And what it does is it doesn't give you that copy of Google Slides you can do. It just says Google Slides that you can do. It's pretty sweet. Got to give credit to Tony Vincent. He was the one that shared this out. I fell in love with it, and I use it all the time when I anticipate people are going to want to make copies. So 3 different ways. You could just share this URL. People can view it. You can publish it and share it, that new link, this way, or take the original URL, delete back, and type template/preview. And then people who want it can make that use template, and you have your own copy of it. But like I said, if you feel like that's overwhelming, don't worry. That's beyond truly like level 1.
And there's also an extension that I put in the chat box called Sir Links-a-Lot, and the extension helps you do a force copy, a template, a preview, and all that good stuff.
Yep. Oh, it might be a good time, Desiree. What do you think about talking about some extensions to use with slides?
Yay!
So here's my little extension. And one thing I just want to point out recently is this little puzzle piece now shows up on your extensions bar up here. And I found it really cool because they're trying to, I think simplify extensions in a way, and some of us tend to get a lot of extensions. I try to keep mine managed in an amount. So I click on this little puzzle piece, and it's going to pull up all of the extensions that I have added to my account. And by clicking or unclicking these little pins, notice it takes them away or it brings it back. I thought that was really cool because I'm not actually turning the extension off. I'm just not showing it at the moment, which I thought was pretty handy. And they also kind of are classifying them. So these do see changes on this particular site. These down here don't need that kind of access, which I thought was very helpful. And then it does give you quick access to, if you want to manage your extensions, to be able to turn them on, delete them from your account altogether. That little puzzle piece, I thought, oh, that's a new thing. Maybe we'll just talk about that real briefly. So anyway, let's go to our slide that I've got some extensions listed.
I hate the puzzle piece, Sarah.
Why? I kind of like
it.
I kind of like it.
Because when I teach extensions, I put them in a special order that I'm going to teach them from my website. And the puzzle piece just puts them in alpha order, or whatever order it wants to put them in.
But you can change them around, right?
Yeah, but they were already set.
Oh, I got you. I know we get attached to things and then they change them, and then we're kind of like, Google, I love you, but why? All right, I digress. Anyway, so these are probably the 5 extensions that I use most heavily with slides. Bitly, it creates very short URLs, which makes it a lot easier. Instead of saying go to docs.google.com/presentation, like I'm never going to say that. I'll create a shortened URL. I have also appreciated recently Tiny URL because it's not case sensitive. Bitly is a case sensitive URL. Cite this for me, English teachers. You're going to love this or hate it. Cite this for me. Let's go to this Duckster's website. So teaching kids citations, I always kind of found to be painful. It's something that they absolutely have to do. It's something that is very valuable. I'm not discounting that at all. But this Cite This for me, a language arts teacher, oh, let's refresh this. Come on, you got to give me something. A language arts teacher showed this, and she goes, I don't have to teach citations anymore. I showed them how to use this website. All right, we're going to go to history.com. We're going to find something. And she said it takes the citation pain out of it. And once it loads, you click this, you're on this site. Maybe the kids are using this for their project. Why isn't that working? Oh, there we go. So it's going to give you this citation right here. And all you have to do, I mean, where was this in college is all I have to say. I'm going to grab this. I'm literally clicking on here. Let's copy this. Is it copying? Let's do copy, and we're going to come back to our slide, and maybe I'm going to paste it here. There is my citation. So when this language arts teacher showed this to me, I was like, well, that is really cool. She's like, I want them to know they need to cite this, as opposed to the pain of where every period or comma go. So keep that in mind. Like, I'm not trying to tell language arts teachers how to do your jobs by any means. This was just what she had said to me. And I thought, well, that's a really good point. We want the kids to be doing the citing. So if we can make it, and you could pick APA, Chicago, Harvard, MLA, it'll change it for you. Like, that to me was a very powerful tool. And then you're also, like, you have to give the credit to somebody, right? Because I didn't make this website. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Screencastify is a fantastic extension that I used to create these videos. Any of the videos that you see in here, I did them with Screencastify, which I think is awesome. It saves directly to your Google Drive, or you can upload directly to YouTube if you'd like. Color Pick Eyedropper, we talked about a little bit. You can find customized colors that you can add to your presentations. You can add them in Google Docs and all that kind of good stuff. And then IORAD is a relatively new extension that I've tried out. I did this with a couple of the videos. You can make very quick tutorials. Basically, all you do is you actually go through and you say, click here and do this, and click here and you do this. And then it creates the video for you. It actually creates some of the text for you as well. It was pretty cool. I tried it out on a couple of the videos. You'll be able to see that in action. And then while we're talking about extensions, first I'm going to pause before I jump into add-ons. Desiree, questions at all?
We did have a question about audio. It's just making sure that the audio file is shareable when you upload it into a Google slide. So I think she has that answer.
So when I inserted this audio, can people play it to make sure that I did it right? Yes, no. So when you insert audio, which is relatively new, and there was a big hiccup with it. It's right here. So I inserted, I'm going to select it, and I insert it. It does need to be shareable, which is probably the biggest pain at this point, is if they don't give it that access, you won't be able to hear it. It'll just look like a little icon on your screen. So you should be able, it's me talking. So if I did not actually change the share settings on there, I apologize.
So someone just said that it worked for them.
Okay, good. That's always like my big fear. Like I'm like, oh yeah, this is a really cool tool. And then I forget to make it happen. And we can't talk about extensions and not talk about add-ons, which is another phenomenal thing. And slides is really where add-ons comes in big time for me. So on the add-on slide.
And someone just asked, what's the difference between an extension and an add-on?
Oh, good question. So the extensions, and I tried to clarify this because I get that question a lot. Desiree, I'm sure that you do too. Add-ons are little programs that make this particular, so in this case, Google Slides. It makes Google Slides, it gives it a little bit more power, gives it something that it wasn't, allows you to do something within Google Slides that you couldn't have done prior. And these are, most of these add-ons are not built by Google. They're made by other people. Like this Adobe stock add-on that I have was made by Adobe. It was not made by Google. It was made to work with Google Slides. Whereas extensions are little packages that sit in your web browser. So these stay there regardless of if I'm in Slides or if I'm in Docs or in Sheets. The add-ons are specific to this particular app. So they're kind of like the within power, and the extensions are the ones that sit much bigger, much higher on your computer. So the extensions are always there. They add additional functionality to your whole Chrome browser. The add-ons add stuff to your particular application. In my case, Slides right here. And if that's confusing, I totally understand it. The more that you use or you play around with this one or that one, the more comfortable you'll understand and you'll see it being different. So these are the ones that I really use the most in Google Slides. This is the only one, the Icons by Noun project, I used to get all of the icons on my table of contents. I do pay for that. And I do want to make that clear. I do pay for it. I like free. I do appreciate free. However, I do feel like the Icons by Noun project is a very worthwhile subscription. They have an Educator discount. I think when I renewed, it was $20 for the year. And then you can access any and all of their icons, and you can change their colors and the sizes and all that kind of stuff. There is a free option, flat icon, and it really just kind of depends on your preference. If you're interested in making GIFs, there is a GIF maker. I haven't done this a whole lot, so I can't really speak to its use. to a lot of extent. I think I've done it once or twice. And then down here, if you're a Pear Deck user, there is a Google Slides add-on for Pear Deck, and then Unsplash images and Adobe Stock. Those are great places. I'm always thinking about copyright usage and appropriate use in a classroom. Sure, you could have kids go out on Google and do a search for anything and everything, and they're going to pull back a tremendous amount of images. And you could teach them about the tools and teach them which ones are good for modification and which ones are free for commercial use, and all of those. You can teach them all of that kind of stuff. And Google Slides, it's pretty awesome that all you have to do in order to find images that are free for you and your students to use is put on this add-on, and then here it automatically is going to generate some images, but you could certainly search for whatever you want. And then these are high quality images that you are allowed to take and to use. You still can have those conversations because it'll show, like, this one's from NASA, this one is from that particular photographer. You can click on that and take you to the link. They can still give credit, but these are photos that, high quality photos that you and your students are 100% able to use in any of your presentations or anything that you choose to use Google Slides for. So those are some of the add-ons and extensions. I kind of pair those two together. Something that was very valuable in Google Docs was the voice typing. And I think my preference is to use Slides a lot more than I use Google Docs. So I always want to think about those capabilities for all of our students, but especially for our ones that need maybe a little bit extra. Voice typing does work in Google Slides. It just works differently. It's not going to allow you to voice type on the actual slide itself, but you can voice type down here in the speaker notes. So just like in Docs, it's right here in Tools, and it even says that right there, voice type speaker notes. So when you talk to students, I always show them Google Docs first. And then when we come into Slides, you remember that voice typing? And I've even had students that get there before I even show this. And they're like, well, can I do it in here? You can, but we got to do it a little bit differently. So you just turn on the voice typing. You can alter the language if you have students that are speaking other languages, ELL, ESL, all that kind of stuff. Not ESL, sorry. You click the microphone, and then it is going to voice type down here in those speaker notes that I showed at the very beginning, which I said is a great place for directions. So if I click on this microphone, it's going to capture my voice, and it's typing it down in the speaker notes, period. Remember, just by voice typing, the students are still responsible for their punctuation and the grammar and everything. It'll put it down here, but that's also kind of nice. They can make their changes down here, then select it, copy, and then insert a text box, and then they can paste it up here. So it works, it's still there. You just have to do like that little extra step of taking it out of the speaker notes and putting it up top. Very powerful, and for a lot of students, that can be a big game changer. And for students, you know, I'm even thinking, like, if you had a student that had, maybe I was left-handed and with my shoulder surgery and I can't do as much with my left hand, voice typing can be a very easy go-to tool to help them out. You know, for students that need to just get the information down. Again, great voice typing. Love it. Now, what I'd like to spend like maybe the next 20 minutes, I put this in here because oftentimes Slides is a presentation tool, but I did mention at the top that it could be some interactive activities. So if you do make a copy of this slide deck, you'll be able to do this. Since I created this, obviously I'm going to be able to manipulate the things in here. So what I did was I created this particular slide. I know money is a topic that certain grade levels teach, but I also thought it'd be a great visual representation. So I found a dollar bill, and I found a penny, a nickel, a dime, and a quarter. And I tried to keep them life size. I'm not going to tell you, maybe I'll tell you that I pulled out my coins and I actually held them up to my screens. But again, when you do sizing and all that kind of stuff, here's my big tip with this. Use the gray space out to the sides, both the left and the right. Put your manipulatives, put your little extras, put them out there. And then the slides bring them onto the actual, students bring those items onto the actual slide to play with, to manipulate, to build things, to calculate things, to do whatever it is that you're asking them. So here I gave them the direction, bring over enough coins to make $1 in 2 different ways. So check this out. Obviously 4 quarters make $1, right? So I'm going to click on my quarter and I'm going to bring it over. Oops, it's behind. We'll deal with that in a second. I'm actually going to just pull them down here, right? And you go, well, but Sarah, there's a quarter left over there. Sure is, because what I did when I built this slide was I made a bunch of duplicates of these coins, and then I stacked them. We talked about layers very briefly at the beginning. I stacked all of the quarters right on top of each other. I could bring this back using my red guidelines. It's going to help me put it right on top, and actually I didn't get it right on top. It appears that there's 1 of each coin. I think there's probably 10. And you go, Sarah, what? That's right. Give them plenty so that they can be playing around with them, or give them 1 and teach them how to do the duplication. So notice when I brought over the quarter, and I was trying to lay it on top of the $1, but it's not on top of the $1 because there are literally 10 quarters stacked in. There's these $2 bills. There's this comment bubble. There's this screen box. There's this text box. There's this text box. Everything on here is a particular layer. So think about like 25 different sheets of paper. I could sit here and I could try to figure out where everything is, but really what I want is this $1 to go to the back. I don't want to add it in as a background, but I do want it to go to the back. So I'm thinking of all of these layers of everything that I have on my slide. I'm going to grab my $1, and then I'm going to change the order. So I went to Arrange, Order, and I'm going to say send this $1 bill to the back. So I took that $1 bill, which was sitting somehow on top of this quarter, and I literally just put it down to the bottom. So now anytime, and I put it all the way to the back. So now any quarter that I bring over, it's gonna be, you can see these quarters are all kind of like tucking in behind each other because they're stacked tall. So that's one way, correct? Now I'm gonna put this one, and this is something that I should have done prior. I should have put these already on the back, but it just also shows you how you can then teach your students about these pieces of slides. So maybe I want to bring over a dime, a nickel, a penny, right? Like you can extrapolate this. You can keep going. You understand now how bringing in these manipulatives, and if they delete one, oh, you have a whole stack over here. Teach them to bring it back. So it doesn't have to just be text and things like that. You could work with money. You could work with shapes. You could work with fractions. We did also talk about a Venn diagram. Eric Kurtz is a phenomenal resource. I have him linked in one of the last slides with all of the other resources. He shares out on one of his blogs an entire Google Drive folder. The last time I looked in there were like 44 graphic organizers that he shares out. He used mostly Google Drawings, which is not slides, obviously, but it works very similarly to Google Slides. But you could always look at his graphic organizers and you could bring them over into a Google slide. So use slides as a graphic organizer. That's fantastic. Kids can have the 2 circles. You could have 3 circles. You could go crazy with your graphic organizers. Social studies, always near and dear to my heart. you could have them bring in a map, and then they could annotate. They could put arrows on the map. They could change the colors of the arrows. They could put circles. They could put text boxes. They could be annotated. They could identify different things. They can outline countries. They can outline paths, whatever it is that you need to do. Add in a map key if you wanted to. It really can go, take what you already do maybe on paper, and when you go to digitize it, they can go crazy with what they can show you, what they know. And if they make a mistake, they can easily delete and redo something. It's not, oh, well, this whole map is now ruined and I've got to get a new one. You don't have to do that anymore. Another thing that I had thought about was in science class, you could have unlimited slides, and on some slides they could post in what their materials are for an experiment. They could do evidence, whether it's photographic evidence or if they create charts. Use Google Sheets, you can bring charts over. Maybe it's just narratives that they want to type, you know, when they type up their research, they type up their findings, their hypothesis, whatever. You can, a slide for each one. You could have 12 slides of evidence. I mean, really, honest and truly, like, slides can do whatever it is that you want them to do. It really can. And then I just want to highlight, with a little bit of time that we've got left, a couple of different ways that I have used slides in somewhat non-traditional manners.
And so, we do have a couple of questions.
Cool. Let's do questions and then we'll come back and highlight these.
Okay, so do we have a selection pane in slides like in PowerPoint?
I'm going to be honest, it has been so incredibly long that I have used PowerPoint that I'm not 100% what the selection pane would be comparable to.
Okay. It can probably be Googled. Can you show us how to add text into shapes?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I am going to go to one of my, this one, right? Yep. Okay, so this is one that I can play around with. So I'm going to add in a shape. Let's do a non-traditional shape, like a cloud. I'm going to make a big cloud. And maybe I want to, if I could spell better, I'd type in like a name of a cloud, but I can't. Cumulus, cumulus. All I did was I inserted the shape, and then I did a double click, right click if you're on a mouse or whatever, and then this cursor will show up. Same thing as in a text box. You can change the font, you can change the size. Because I have my themes pane open over here, I've got my sleeping snowman, because it's kind of hiding because there's not enough space to go across. I'm going to click on my sleeping snowman, and that's where you can see these other additional items with my the alignment. I can put it in the center of my cloud if I want it to be up at the top. The thing you have to remember about typing in these shapes is you are kind of confined. You're only going to be able to type what they have determined the borders are. You're not going to be able to go in, and unless you completely alter the size of your shape, you cannot like stretch it like, oh, I really wanted Sarah on that other line. You'd have to maybe adjust your font or not. See how it's kind of keeping it in that center part of your cloud. Likewise, you could take that shape. Let's insert an arrow. I'm going to make this kind of a bigger arrow. And let's say you wanted to be able to customize that. Insert your shape, and then what I would do is insert a text box on top of it, and then your only confines are within that particular text box. So you can layer, again, you could be layering things to help you customize out what you're looking to do on your your shape or on your particular slide. What else? Desiree, any other questions?
I did not see any. Guys, if I missed your question, please go ahead and put it in the chat.
Okay. So coming back to the presentation, I've got 3 things, like I said, kind of non-traditional uses of slides, and I kind of gave this a shout out, creating an app. What I suggested was you could use a Google slide to create an app, and I say that because it's not truly an app that you can share in presentation mode, like what we were talking about here, to your parents and your students, that can keep that homeschool connection very strong. And the awesome thing about using a Google slide in order to be able to do that is if you found a typo, if you found a spelling error, you can fix that. And then the next time the parents go to look at the slides, it updates and it's all good to go. So using it for homework, using it for communication, homeschool, using a Google slide to do that communication is pretty powerful. So I've linked the blog that I wrote about it, and then the webinar that Desiree has posted on her YouTube channel. I went ahead and I linked it right here. Another thing that I've done creatively with Google Slides was a 3rd grade teacher asked me to come in to her classroom. She said her students were really inspired by the author Sandra Markle, who does those books like What If You Had Elephant Ears, or whatever those are, and they take like this cartoon student and then, or a cartoon kid, and then they give them all of these different ears or these different tails or feet or whatever it is. They were super excited and they wanted to write their own book. So we did. We wrote a book in Google Slides, and we actually reached out to Sandra Markle, and she was very complimentary, and we did it all in Google Slides. It was pretty awesome. Kids were super excited, and we ended up printing it and binding it. So now they all have their own copy of the book. And we did that one. It was a square 8x8. And it was pretty awesome. I got to show those kids how to do that and worked with them. It's pretty amazing. And then Desiree, I got a notification that someone had raised their hand. Did they happen to pop a question into the chat, or?
No, they did not.
Okay, so whoever that was and your name flashed on my screen too quickly, I didn't catch it. If you want to add your question to the chat, Desiree can ask. And then the last thing that I highlighted in here too is that templates for teacher. We're going to have a webinar coming up on September 12th, but if your interest is piqued and you want to go and check it out, you can go check out the website that Beth and I created, and we share things out. It's all free. You can take it, modify it, do with it what you want. And then the final slides on here are just some resources that I tucked in that I thought might be helpful to you as you continue on your slides journey. And I had shown this in the app webinar, the way that I do links, because this image of Google Slides and then this text down here are actually 2 different pieces. I can show you on mine. Unless you make a copy, you're not going to see this easily on yours. I add in a transparent shape, and I put the link on that shape. This is crazy wonderful. It dawned on me as I was going on my little app adventure. It gives the people that opportunity to click somewhere near there, not necessarily directly on. Or if you are like me and you have students and like, it's not working, I can't click on that. If you give them a little bit bigger space, they can click on that. And then I have just ginormous, I better scoot that down. Ginormous shapes that just cover these up, so that when you click on that, it just takes you off into the next, wherever that link takes you to. So I do encourage you to go back. I was going back and forth through a lot of different things. Each of these slides do have a little video that if you want to watch, it'll give you some more information about Explore. Coming up to the end of our 2 hours together, and reach out to Desiree or myself if you have additional questions. But slides, really, the only limit to them is going to be what you decide the limits are. It really can be such a versatile tool that you can do almost like pretty much anything you can do in Google Slides. So I do encourage you to check them out, play with it, try things out, and then reach out if you have questions.
Woo! Marathon on slides. Thank you so much. Okay, guys. So I want to make sure that I point out a couple of things. I did put the okay. I did put the evaluation in the chat. So I don't know what this is now. Okay, that's number 1 in the chat. So please fill out the evaluation. Please give Sarah some love in the chat again with another awesome presentation. And I'm sure you're starting to, as you are coming to these, you're starting to realize like you really could be here forever, right? James, I don't know why we're on camera, so I'm gonna stop that. You really could be here for like a whole day, right? Like every day we have a webinar, like we could be here the whole day. We could just be here the whole rest of the day. So thank you so much, Sarah. Again, we do have Google Forms coming up on Thursday, and then a lot of your questions today dealt with Google Drive and Google Classroom. So that means you're getting more interested, right? You're getting like, wait, how can I use all these together? And that's the whole point of this series. So we're going to be having those webinars coming up. Yes, you can sign up right now for all of the webinars. I also put my 5-minute tips in the chat. I have a lot of great videos about slides and things like that. I put Sarah's class about app making in there as well. So a lot of really, really good stuff on the YouTube channel, guys. So you may want to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Then whenever we post a new video, you'll get a notification. Now, the older videos, you'll just have to go look through, but the new ones, you'll get a notification. Okay, so thank you guys so much. Please fill out the evaluation. If you need help signing in, I am going to hang out and help you do that. And Sarah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Desiree, I wanted to point out, like, there's a question in there, and I might be mistaken, but it's about, will we be learning about Google Meets and Hangouts? You did one, or you're going to do one on Google Meet?
I am, and I did not promote it earlier because it's new, because webinars keep being added. So yes, we are. Oh, somebody else is popping on camera. Stay off camera, people. I am going to do one on Zoom and Hangouts. So someone actually like, please just sit and tell us how to do our settings and just tell us how to do stuff. So I am going to do one on Hangouts. Sorry, Google Meet and Zoom. And that is on that same link, guys. It's on the same website link that you can get to that. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Thank you.